Hello there, once again, it is I, David D. Franco, from daviddefranco.com. Let's get serious. Yesterday's Apple event for March of 2015 was huge. They announced some very surprising things, along with some not very surprising things. So let's get into it. Oh, and by the way, I just saw the keynote last night because I was gone all day yesterday working outside of my house. So I never really got a chance to, watch the keynote live with everyone else. But I'm actually kind of glad it worked out that way because I got to enjoy the keynote spoiler-free when I got home with my dinner. And if you ask me, that's probably the best way to experience it because it's just you, your TV, Tim Cook, enjoying Apple's latest announcements. What could be better? Okay, so getting into the keynote and what was announced. First up, HBO Now. Now, honestly, I don't care about this that much. I mean, I'm very happy with HBO Go. Is this in the frame? Make sure that's not in the frame. No, we're good. But I gotta say, this is a big deal. HBO Now will be exclusively available on the Apple TV, which I think is pretty awesome. But only for one reason. I mean, yes, it's great that people are getting instant access to all TV shows and episodes, to basically the award-winning HBO shows. I'm not sure on details, I'm just going by what I saw in the keynote. But, in my opinion, this is even a bigger deal than just that because Apple is taking these media partnerships seriously. Tim Cook was careful to say this is just the beginning. Twice. He said that twice in the keynote, once in the beginning and one towards the end during his recap. Because if you ask me, this is just further proof that Apple is taking the whole media industry very seriously and there will eventually be an actual Apple television along with exclusive partnerships to specific brands such as HBO Now. And who knows, maybe they'll jump on board with Netflix one day. You never know. Apple is huge, they have tons of money to spend, so if you ask me, the future is bright. But not only that, they also lowered the price of the Apple TV from $99 to $69. $69! That's cheap. And guys, let me just say this, I honestly use my Apple TV every single day of my life. It's simply part of my daily routine now. From Netflix to HBO Go to YouTube to AirPlaying Pandora, it's a great device and easily worth the $69. So guys, if you don't have one yet, please just buy yourself one. Use my Amazon link right below, which helps me out as a content creator. I appreciate it. Okay, so next up is Research Kit, and this is a big deal. It's not like Apple spent 5 or 10 minutes talking about the medical industry. They spent a good at least half hour or so talking about how they can enhance the medical industry. But not only that, this also helps consumers around the world have a better understanding of diseases like Parkinson's disease and how it works amongst other diseases. Okay, so it's no secret, I don't have much interest in the medical industry because, well, I don't really know much about it. I'm not gonna pretend to be a doctor. I'm not a doctor, and I'm never ever going to be a doctor. I'm a tech geek and I'm very happy with that. But I was really impressed with how much attention Apple is putting into Research Kit. It's simply very neat, and I'm just so glad Apple is taking advantage of their own technology and exploring non-consumer markets. So it's very clear that Apple's not only about the Mac, the iPhone, the iPad, and now the Apple Watch, but they're also interested in helping others out there solve real-world problems. And for that, I give Apple much respect. Bravo. But of course, I am just scratching the surface, so if you want to learn more about Research Kit, just go to apple.com and do some research. Okay, so getting to the first real big product announcement during yesterday's keynote, Apple has completely reinvented the MacBook. Not the MacBook Air, like I was expecting, but the MacBook. And I have a lot to say, so let's get into it. So this new MacBook sports an incredible redesign and technological achievement. They have essentially taken the previous MacBook Logic board and decreased its size down to about this. It is insane. Most of the MacBook is literally made up of thin sheets of battery, custom made for the MacBook. That is huge. Because guys, let's face it, this new MacBook is incredibly thin. It's actually stupidly thin. This is simply the direction that Apple is moving in with their consumer grade products. Not everybody can understand that, so I'm going to explain it this way. The MacBook is not really intended for content creators. In my opinion, it's those looking for a very simplistic web browsing experience, email experience, social media experience on the go without having to worry about external hard drives, external webcams, a mouse, a keyboard, whatever. Because this new design is incredible. I mean, it's so freaking thin. But of course, with this redesign comes lack of I/O connectivity. There's only one USB-C port, which is very interesting though. I mean, Apple is definitely ahead of the game, and I can see other companies following Apple's footsteps sometime in the next 1 to 2 years or so. So yes, Apple is without a doubt in my mind ahead of the curve. Everyone is making a big deal about this as if it's a bad thing. I mean, yes, it kind of sucks that you can't have all the usual connectivity that you're used to, but you have to keep in mind, Apple is thinking ahead. This MacBook is simply a sign of the future. With everything going wireless nowadays and cloud computing, we need physical peripherals less and less. Now, for me personally, the MacBook is not for me, which is why I have no interest in buying myself one anytime soon. Not only does it start out at $12.99, but it simply does not fit my style. I need this. Large monitors. I need tons of I/O. I need powerful computing. And this new MacBook, it doesn't really offer that. But of course, the MacBook Pro still exists. So if you want serious computing, look past the MacBook Air. Look past this new MacBook and go straight for the MacBook Pro. I mean, it's kind of cool though that Apple finally has their future and their vision kind of set in stone here, because we have the MacBook, which is brand new. It's just meant for basic computing, email, web browsing, social media, all that good stuff. We have the MacBook Pro, which is basically a desktop on the go. And then there's the MacBook Air, which I gotta say, that kind of goes against what I just said. That's kind of an odd product at this point. The MacBook Air is cheaper than the new MacBook, but also thicker, which means, does the name MacBook Air really live up to its, well, branding anymore? Because when you think of Air, you think of thin or nothing. But the new MacBook is a lot thinner than the MacBook Air. So you gotta ask yourself, is the MacBook Air eventually going to be just erased? Honestly, I really hope so, because I strongly believe in this. The MacBook Air has no place in this industry anymore. We simply need the new MacBook and the MacBook Pro. Because I will say the new MacBook does have a Retina display with a beautiful resolution of 2304 by 1440, which, now that I think of it, is definitely quite an odd resolution. Well, because mainly it's a 12-inch display, so you got to keep that in mind. 12-inch, I mean, we have not had a 12-inch notebook since, what, the PowerBook G4? Yeah, it's been quite a while. There is so much more I want to say about the MacBook, so I'm just going to go over this real quick. The keyboard completely redesigned. It uses some kind of butterfly mechanism, which is actually really neat. I mean, I will say I'm worried about how much, travel those keys have. But hey, I mean, I trust Apple in design and functionality, so I'm not going to really judge it until I try it for myself at an Apple store. And then we have the completely redesigned trackpad. As far as I can tell, it has some kind of taptic engine, just like the Apple Watch, where when you click, it feels like you're clicking, but apparently you're not. And honestly, I thought it was a physical trackpad until I watched the recap video by MKBHD. Shout out to Marquez, he makes awesome content. And he said you're not actually clicking. So that's why that taptic engine is there, to make it feel like you're clicking. So in a way, it's simulating physical clicks, but you're really just tapping on glass. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Again, I have not used it myself. I Facebook Messenger chill. So I'm not going to judge it until I try it for myself, but I will say, hey, Apple's bold. And guys, you know what? This entire MacBook redesign is bold. Not only does it do less than the MacBook Air might do, but for more money, but it's also a very interesting risk in the notebook industry. Can Apple pull it off? Honestly, I think they can, because Apple has a very, very passionate market behind them. I me included because I love my Apple products. But I'm not about to drop $12.99 on a notebook, whereas I can get so much more for just a few $100s more with the MacBook Pro. It's very tricky. Honestly, I think it's better if they just kill the MacBook Air and eventually drop this new MacBook's price down to $999. Which, by the way, mark my words, they will do that eventually. Just give it a couple of years. So, like the iPad and the iPhone, the MacBook is available in a variety of colors, including space gray, silver, and gold. Yes, a gold notebook. Again, one of those things I gotta see in person, but from the screenshots and the photos I've seen, it's not that bad. But I will say I really like how Apple is being consistent with their iOS product line and now their Mac product line with the space gray, the silver, and the gold. It's pretty cool stuff. And finally, this new MacBook is shipping on April 10th. So if you have $12.99 to spare, pick it up, and I'm interested to see how you feel. Now, you might have noticed I didn't go over really that many specs in terms of RAM. I mean, it does have 8 GB of RAM, which is definitely quite impressive. But I'm just going to rely on you to go to apple.com for all of the information you need. I simply make these videos to share my opinions, not talk about specs. Okay, so let's wrap up this video real quick. Let's talk about the Apple Watch. Apple showed everything that we saw previously with the initial Apple Watch keynote announcement. So yes, I'm still just as impressed as I was a few months ago. But I gotta say, I'm even more impressed this time around because Apple actually took the time to show real-world usage up on stage with how basically the Apple Watch could fit into your day. For instance, waking up, texting whoever on your phone by using Siri, which I gotta say is awesome. Why doesn't Apple let us use our iPhone with, "Hey Siri, hey Siri"? But Apple Watch does support "Hey Siri." Why is that? Especially from a device that is so limited on battery capacity. Why does the Apple Watch support "Hey Siri" and my iPhone does not? I really hope Apple changes that because I love Siri. I use it every single day. I really do. But anyway, Apple did say that they expect 18 hours of battery life out of the Apple Watch on a typical day. So a typical day could include waking up, checking your notifications, doing the occasional text message, checking your email frequently, and maybe playing some music throughout the day as you're walking down the streets of New York City, then coming home, checking email. I don't know. Everybody's day is different, but I'm really, really glad to see that Apple took the time to say that the Apple Watch is expected to get 18 hours on a typical day. Now, obviously, it's going to be significantly less if you're constantly playing music, constantly using Siri, constantly text messaging. But like anything, battery life can vary greatly. I mean, for instance, my iPhone's battery life, it's not the same every day. It simply depends on what I'm doing that day. And I gotta say this, I'm just really happy to see that the Apple Watch is not just some glorified notification center. Some of the apps that they showed on stage yesterday really impressed me. And I'm glad to see it's technically a mini computer. It's not a glorified time. It's not a glorified alert system tied to my iPhone. These are actual content-rich apps running on my wrist. And I think that's pretty cool. Now, I will say I'm not going to start, humping Apple because I'm obsessed with them. Because I will say this. I'm still not convinced that I need an Apple Watch. I'm still not convinced that I need a smartwatch to begin with. Because, guys, look at me. I am not a watch person. The only thing I have on my wrist is this Intel wristband. And now it's just pure blue because the Intel branding rubbed off a while ago. But you get my point. I'm not into watches. I'm honestly not. I've just never really enjoyed them. I'm fine with my phone. I just use that for time, as well as anything else I have by my side. But I am very excited about the Apple Watch, and I'm very curious to see if it can fit into my everyday life. So Apple, you have my confidence. You have my vote. So just come through for me. Please, I need to be convinced that an Apple Watch can actually be used on a day-to-day basis, and I won't be annoyed charging it every day, because that's honestly my biggest worry right now. I hate the idea of having to take something off my wrist every single day and putting it back on. That's exactly why I no longer wear my Up band. Is that what it's called? Up band? Yeah, Up, UP. Because it was annoying. Sometimes I forgot to take it off. Sometimes I forgot to put it on, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm not going to go over pricing because you can just go to apple.com for all that information, but I will say this. The Apple Watch Edition starts out at $10,000. That's insane. But, unlike all of the other naysayers out there, I'm not going to diss Apple for this because I honestly believe that many of these naysayers are looking at this from the completely wrong perspective. Apple can get away with selling a $10,000 watch for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's made out of pure gold. And number 2, it's a fashion statement. People don't mind spending $10,000 on something that really means a lot to them. Actual watches can cost that much, and they can do far, far less than the Apple Watch can do. So keep that in mind. Don't diss Apple just because they're coming out with a $10,000 luxury item. It simply does not apply to you. It simply does not apply to me. But does that mean I'm going to diss them and call them borderline offensive? Of course not. Because I have common sense. I know that I'm not forced to spend $10,000 on a watch. Because guys, honestly, I'm going to be perfectly happy, hopefully, with the $349 Apple Watch Sport Edition or whatever they're going to call it. Because that's all I need. I don't need anything overly fancy. But for the wealthy people out there who can afford a $10,000 Apple Watch, enjoy it. Congratulations. Don't listen to the naysayers. I think they're jealous. Because let's face it, if you had 10 grand to drop and you couldn't even think about it, you'd probably do the same thing. It really is no different than spending over $100,000 on a car when other people are perfectly happy with a car that costs them 20 grand or even less. Keep that in mind. Pricing is completely relative to one's lifestyle. That's all I'll say. And now finally, if you installed iOS 8.2, you can install, well, it automatically does it for you, the Apple Watch app, which by the way, Apple, please, you gotta redo that icon. It's just, ugh. Anyway, opening the Apple Watch, it says, good afternoon. Of course, that changes, you know, if it's mornings, it'll say good morning. Anyway, you can actually pair your watch, and if you look at it, it actually opens like a viewfinder, which is pretty freaking awesome. So I'm assuming it's going to scan some kind of unique code, like a QR code or whatever. Although I don't think Apple's really a fan of QR codes, so I'm interested to see how that's going to be. Oh wait, I just noticed, pair Apple Watch manually. Tap the eye icon on your Apple Watch to view its name, then tap the corresponding name in the list below. That's pretty cool. And I think it's really neat that Apple's kind of giving us a sneak peek into how this is going to work. Because if you go down here on the bottom right, there is an App Store icon. Now, unfortunately, you cannot browse the Apple Watch apps yet. But I'm hoping they give us a preview soon. And I'm assuming they will because I'm pretty sure they said during the keynote that we will get early access. But I could be wrong. And then finally, there is an Explore tab in the middle where you can, you know, just watch videos about the Apple Watch and all that good stuff. Bing! And that is my coverage of the Apple Watch. You can get yours on April 24th, so pre-order it in just a few weeks and enjoy it. Again, I really gotta stress this. This video is just about my thoughts. I didn't go over specs too much. I didn't go over release dates too much or pricing, so just go to apple.com and view all the information that you need to find. But I will wrap up my video and say this. Apple continues to innovate. And I really have to stress that because I cannot stand when people say Apple's vision is dead. They have not innovated in years. Well, they just completely redesigned their MacBook with a very, very innovative design, especially using sheets of battery custom made for that body itself. And I think that's pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. And then, of course, there's ResearchKit. Guys, don't forget, Apple is not only a company that creates products. They're a company that creates ideas and solutions that can help solve real-world problems. And if you can't recognize that, you need to start doing your research because that is awesome. It's huge. Apple's taking the time to literally change the world. And I have the utmost respect for that kind of vision. And then there's a new MacBook, which is completely new and different and kind of confusing to some consumers. But you really can't deny this. Apple's a bold company. They don't follow the rules of others. They do what they want, and they're gonna see if it works. And I just think that's great. Some people don't get Apple. They don't understand their vision, but I understand their vision very well. They don't care what others think. They always do things their own way, and I just think that's incredible. So whether the MacBook is for you, whether the Apple Watch is for you, or whether you're still freaking out over the fact that the Mac Pro looks like a trash can, by the way, it doesn't matter. Because Apple is a multi-billion-dollar company who is kicking ass. And if you don't believe in them, that's not your problem. That's not Apple's problem. That's not my problem. It's just how it is. Apple is going to continue to dominate. The iPhone is now the #1 smartphone in the world, I believe, especially thanks to the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. So yeah, there's no signs of Apple slowing down, and I cannot wait to see what their future holds. So guys, what did you think about Apple's announcements? Post your thoughts right below. And as always, if you act like an asshole, you're gonna get blocked. Be respectful of other people's opinions. I cannot believe one comment I read yesterday. This person was basically wishing cancer on others who actually support Apple's product announcements. Yes, wishing cancer on others. Wishing death over freaking technology. Grow the hell up and be a respectful person. Thanks for watching.